So you are on full size. You are on a full size big screen.
If it looks anything like the one on the right, I'm showing up real big on their spot.
Yes, you are. So.
Well, hey guys, I've hit the record button. So hopefully this recording will be useful for you guys as well as for the people who aren't there if you need to come back and see it at any time. My name is Elizabeth Walker. I am one of 4 librarians over at the library. Let me share my screen because what I can do is show you who I work with. That way you know if you call the library at any time, you know exactly who you may be speaking with if they give you a name. So on the left is Robbie, our director, followed by Karen, and then myself and Amy. And any one of us is happy to help you at any time. Certainly, if you have a particular person you want to talk to, that's fine, but any one of us is happy to help. I'm not going to, for the interest of time, I'm not going to cover all of our contact options. Simply, I'll do that at the very end, simply because I know we need to get into the research, because I know your time is very precious and limited right now. What we're going to talk about tonight is we're going to talk about a little bit about research strategy, but especially about finding electronic resources. Because you've probably found that sometimes it can be a little tricky to figure out what to do in the databases, but once you start to tap into all of the features that they have available to you, it can be one of your best friends. And one of the things I try to tell students, as funny as it might sound to some people, is if you can think of the research process as kind of a treasure hunt, it makes it a little bit easier because, you know, when you go into it and you're feeling real stressed out, it makes it that much harder to stare at those blanks and figure out what to stick in there. So thing one, besides looking at it that way, is I would highly recommend that you take some notes for yourself. For instance, do what works best for you. One thing that may work well for you if you're someone who is digitally oriented is to simply open up a Word document. And I'm gonna try to blow this up so that you can actually see this a little bit. Let me rearrange a couple things on my screen here. But here we go. So for example, if you start out trying to frame your question for yourself so that you bring it to mind as you're doing the research. So you might say to yourself, my research question or my research thesis, whatever it is that you're working on, whether you're answering a question or making a statement, put that front and center on the top of your notes. So for instance, Professor Solak and I talked about the idea of the goal of critical thinking and understanding reality, for instance. So you know, you're starting out just giving yourself some notes as to, okay, this is the direction I'm heading in. I'm going to zoom this out just a hair so you can actually see it. Then you might start to think to yourself, okay, so if I'm going to make a strategy for myself, what am I going to do with this? What do I need to know? I need to know what databases I'm going to go into, and I need to know what terms I'm going to use when I get there, besides all of the other things that your professor may tell you you need to know, such as it needs to be peer-reviewed, it needs to be within the last 5 years. But at the very root of it, you need to know where am I going and where am I searching, right? So when I look at this statement or question, maybe I would phrase it as, you know, what is the goal, or how would I reach the goal of, or how would I use critical thinking to understand reality? So my basic ideas here are going to be critical thinking and then reality, and perhaps you would end up needing a third one being understanding or comprehension. So what I could do, zoom out one more time here, make this a hair smaller so you can actually see it all on the same screen. That would be helpful. So what I want to do is, real quickly, I want to stop and think to myself, all right, if I go into the database and my initial ideas are not present, if they're not available for me, what are some alternative terms I can use? In some cases, that's going to be a synonym, something that means the same. In other cases, if it's a big, broad idea, it can be pieces of a bigger idea. So for example, if you have identified a question or a topic, and maybe one of your aspects is the idea of business, the business world, you may actually end up needing to break that down into sections such as finance, such as marketing. So sometimes it's a synonym, sometimes it's a concept. It depends on what you're doing. In this case, I wanted to stop and think, okay, what might I use in place of it? And you know what? If you don't come up with anything right away, that's okay, because sometimes it's just good to leave yourself some space and start writing in terms you find in articles that seem to be going in the direction you want. One thing that does come to mind, though, when I think of the word understanding, perhaps comprehension is another term, and so on and so forth. So you want to make some notes to yourself. And then you want to think, okay, right, what databases would actually be useful to me? And in your case, if you're doing this in the context of your degree, of course, business is going to be a great tie-in with the management arena. But also, if you are researching a topic where maybe you want to see a number of perspectives at once and narrow down from there, you may want to try the Search Everything database, which does what it sounds like. It helps you to search most of our collection at one time, and it allows you to see a lot of perspectives. The advantage to that is then you can start to get a feel for what makes sense to you, and then you can either continue your search there or switch back over to the subject-specific databases. As I stated, Search Everything searches across the majority of the databases, so it's looking across all of the different subject content areas. When you go to a subject-specific database, it's big companies own individual data pools that we call databases, and so if you're going into a business database, the concentration of what is in that database is business related. Of course, some things are going to cross over, so you might see something in there having to do with nursing. But if you look at the underlying idea, it's usually how nursing intersects with business, and there likely being a business focus to the article, or maybe social work and business and how they intersect. So the main theme in those databases is going to be the idea of business. Whereas with Search Everything, when you use your key terms, it's going to be a variety of ideas from a lot of different places in conjunction with the terms that you use. So with that in mind, if this is the method that works best for you, for example, taking notes in Word, please feel free to do this. If you're more of a paper and pen kind of a person, use that instead. But I really cannot stress to you enough that it's important to keep notes, because life happens and you're going to get called away and end up having to go cook dinner or pick up the kids or take care of a parent. Whatever your situation is, you'll want to take these notes, because if you end up leaving your computer for half an hour, the database times out and you'll lose what you were working on. So taking those notes is kind of reminding yourself, hey, this worked, or even, hey, this didn't work for this search. Just keep in mind that if you note things that don't work, for example, you're like, oh, this database is awful, it didn't give me anything. Remember, that was for that search, and you may want to try that database again with a different topic. So that being said, if you're paper and pen oriented, use pen and paper. If you're electronic related, use this. If you're a visual person, something that may help is taking screenshots. When I was, to remind myself of some of the things that I tested as I was working on this, in my calendar reminder, for instance, just to show you a sample, I broke down Professor Solak's suggestions for things we could talk about tonight. And then I took, for a reminder to myself, I took some screenshots of the different searches that I did. And this could work for you in the sense that as you're searching, if you are a visual person, you're like, I want to remember how I did this, perhaps take a screenshot of the way that the database, the way you had it set up, so that you remind yourself what it looks like. I'm trying to blow it up so you can see it a little bit better, but that's not working out for me so well. So hopefully in the video, you'll be able to see it more clearly because it's up close. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over to our library website. And on the website, where you're going to start, whether you're using Search Everything or you're using a subject-specific database, you're going to start with the search button. And all I had to do was hover over that button, and it drops down a menu for me. And from this menu, there's one of two places. There's two places you may choose to go based on what we just talked about. If you want a subject-specific database, you're going to go to where it says articles. If instead you want to try out Search Everything, you're going to drop down to where it says everything. Everything is also a database, but again, because it's broad and is searching almost everything, is off by itself. So I'm going to open it up in one window, and I'm going to open up a subject-specific database in another window. So I'm going to go to Search, And then business, let me make this bigger so you can see it. Ooh, that was a little too big. That's what the mobile site looks like, by the way, if you saw how the page just changed. And I come down on the page and I find where it says business. And when I click on the word business, it takes me into a list of databases that are those pockets of data specific to the business world. So the first one is ProQuest's ABI Inform, the second Business Decision, and so on. As I scroll down through here, you can see we've got multiple ones, and there's a description behind each one just to give you an idea of the concentration of some of those. So for tonight, we're going to take a look at ABI Inform from ProQuest. And so you're going to get to see a ProQuest platform that's subject specific, and then an EBSCO platform that is general. So you can kind of get a feel for EBSCO and ProQuest, the way they look, as well as subject specific versus general. So when you are off campus like I am right now and like you are, it's going to throw up this screen to you. And if you've not yet encountered this, what it's asking you to do is to log into our databases to show that you're part of our community, because these are paid resources. And what it's asking you for on this page is the username and password that you use in the MySAU portal. So once you've got that data put in there, go ahead and hit login, and then it will take you straight on into the database, as you will see right there. So this is ProQuest's ABI Inform Complete. And over here, let me reload that since we've just signed in. We have got Search Everything. Let me flip into advanced search mode because Search Everything loads in basic search, which you're going to want to be in advanced search. So I'm going to flip between the two of them real quickly, and then I will outline some of the main things that match between them. You'll see that they look different, but they're going to give you very similar functionality. Over here in ProQuest databases, this one specifically being ABI Inform, but in other ProQuest databases, the format will very much look like this. And you've got your blanks here that allow you to input those different terms we were just talking about brainstorming and thinking about before we get started. You've got limiters from here on down then. And limiters do just what they sound like. They limit the scope of your search to whatever parameters you tell it. So for example, if you know that you don't have time to wait for interlibrary loan and you need full text right now, you can check mark this box that says limit to full text. And what it will return to you are just items, just records that have either a PDF attached to it or have the HTML full text. HTML full text is the terminology for when the full text is just printed down the page and it's not in a paged format like you would see in a journal. PDFs are the ones that are scanned right out of a journal and look exactly like they would if you pulled the journal off the shelf. So full text is one option. Another one that you will see is this peer-reviewed option. And if you've not done a lot with peer-reviewed yet, your professors will likely stress that to you a lot about using peer-reviewed, because peer review is generally considered a very good, thorough quality check on those articles. The difference with peer-reviewed as opposed to just any general journal is the fact that it's gone before. The person writing is generally someone who's an expert in the field to begin with, or a researcher of some kind in the field. And then in order for it to be peer-reviewed, it has been taken before a panel of people who are also experts in the field, and they have reviewed it before it was ever allowed to be published. So that's one of the reasons it gets stressed to you a lot as researchers to go for that kind of material, because it's been vetted for quality already. In ProQuest, for some reason, they separate out peer-reviewed from scholarly. Scholarly articles can be both peer-reviewed or not peer-reviewed. So when you come in here, make sure peer-reviewed is checked as well as scholarly. Peer-reviewed is a subset of scholarly. And then publication date is another common one between databases. So if your professor says your articles need to be within the last 5 years, you can easily tell the database this by clicking the down arrow in ProQuest and saying specific date range. And it will expand and give you the option to type in your year. So in this case, I want to tell it to give me articles from 2010 to 2015. And in fact, as close as we are to January, because they sometimes publish in advance, so like January stuff comes out in December, I'm going to put in 2016. So just so that you kind of see what the rest of the page looks like, different databases, especially subject-specific ones, will add in topic-specific limiters, such this one has the NAICS code box. Other databases like psychology won't show that, but because this is subject specific, it's giving you that option for this area of study. You can see there's lots and lots of limiter choices, but the ones we just highlighted are the ones that tend to be pretty universal across databases. So now that we have that set up, I'm going to show you how that looks in EBSCO, because I want you to compare apples to apples so that you're not kind of thrown off when you switch between the formats. If I pop into EBSCO now, you will see the layout is different, but you still have these same options available. Full text, if we scroll, it's giving me a little bit of a hard time. There we go, now it's scrolling. If I scroll down a bit, let me make this bigger. Full text, our search boxes are up here. I just scrolled past those. Under limit your results, here's your checkbox for full text. And then peer reviewed is right across from it, and you check mark that. They don't separate peer review and scholarly in this database, so you just have that one box to check. And then if I want to take a look and I want to search that specific year range, I can come down here to where it says published date, and they've already got these boxes here, so we're going to do the same thing here, 2010 to 2016. You'll notice I'm not changing the month on that. You don't need to do that unless there's a reason you have to specify that in your start year. We're not doing that this time around. So for our first sample, we're looking at the idea of critical thinking and understanding reality. We're going to introduce a couple of advanced searching concepts as we do this. In my sample, when I did this, I did critical thinking in quotation marks and understanding reality with an asterisk, and let me show you why. When I go into the databases and I use quotation marks like this, what I'm telling the database is that I want to search these words as a phrase. You're telling it to keep these terms together when you search. They have to appear next to each other in your results. If I don't put the quotation marks on, if you've got this block of text, critical can be here and thinking can be way over here. Whereas when you put it in quotations, you're telling it to keep the terms together. So that's what we've done here. Then in my other test, or the other, I'm sorry, I'm flipping between the wrong screens here. And the other thing that I put in was understand a star and then the word reality, because we're looking at the idea of understanding reality. And the reason for the asterisk, like that, is because the asterisk is what is considered a wild card. And basically what that means is the prefix of this word, in this case, understand, has to match, and it can have any variety of endings. So understand, understands, understanding, it will pick up all of that. So I'm going to search this as two separate words. That way, if they're talking about understanding and reality in different parts, it will still catch that. So I'm going to let it search that over here while I come and type that in ProQuest over here, and then we're going to compare the results. So just as a brief reminder, ABI Inform is searching business databases, and we have specified full-text peer-reviewed scholarly articles from 2010 to 2016. And in this business subject-specific database, we got back 902 results based on our search terms. And for example, we're seeing things right now with these search terms such as academic piracy, rebranding social criticism as critical thinking, encouraging the development of critical thinking skills in the introductory accounting courses using the challenge problem approach, producing intellectual labor in the classroom, the utilization of a critical thinking model to help students take command of their thinking, etc. If you look at this set of results and you're liking what you're seeing, fantastic. You know, get started looking at it. For example, I was kind of liking the sounds of this number 3. If I want to look at this article, and the same is true in EBSCO as far as getting into the article, I will click on the title of the article. And what I'm seeing here immediately is I've got my title right here, followed by the authors in the next line, the name of the journal, and this 8.7 is volume 8, issue 7. And then July 2011, pages 13 to 26 is what you're seeing. It will break it down differently elsewhere. But it's showing you right now the abstract and then the full text in HTML full text. But in this tab, it's showing you the full text in PDF. It's taking a second to think about it. And while it's loading, I want to highlight that the abstract is great for you to use as a researcher because it is a summary of the article. And when you have a lot of results like this, it's really helpful to be able to read that paragraph and so that it can help you suss out whether or not it's something you want to spend time downloading. It does not of course, give you all of the article's information, but it's enough to try to help you figure out whether or not to spend extra time on it. Now that this full text PDF tab has loaded, I scroll down and you can see that the entire article is here in page format. And when PDF is available to you, which in most cases anymore, that's the standard, so you'll find it in almost all of your article choices. This is the best way to read your articles because it's easier to read and it's much easier to cite in APA citation style. If you only have the other type available, it's still a valid full text article. This just happens to be easier to cite and to read, so take advantage of it if you got it. Finally, this last tab says abstract/details. So that abstract we saw on the first page is repeated over here. And then we've got the subject, the classification, title, etc. And if I scroll down, you will also see here is the permalink back to this document URL. So if you want to copy this document URL, use that one instead of your address bar up above. And also on the right-hand side of this page, and actually on any of these tabbed pages, there is a spot under Download PDF that says Cite. Now here's my warning about this. I am, certainly use the tools to your advantage. Make sure the citation style has been changed to APA 6th edition until it's changed. So it loads it up, but my warning to you is this: always compare what's in your manual to what is printed on the screen. The manual overrides whatever they put on the screen in terms of rules. Oftentimes, they will make a mistake in capitalization or italics. Sometimes it's there and shouldn't be, or vice versa. So always check it against your book. But this is a great way to help you get started in pulling that information out and putting it together. Now I'm going to flip over.
May I interrupt you for 1 second, Elizabeth?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so totally, at least to start with, until you're familiar with APA, I would cut and paste that into your reference pages just to start with, and then you can manipulate it afterwards to save you time. I mean, that's not a plagiarism issue to do that, obviously, but that material, it can save you some time. And like Elizabeth said, usually there's something wrong, but most of the time it's pretty close. So it's a good way to start, save you time.
Yeah, a lot of times the inconsistencies have to do with just the formatting itself, and not so much that it's not that it's pulling bad information, it's just formatting is an issue. So just to kind of review what we talked about real quickly, we put in the search terms and specified our limiters and came back with a set of results. And if you're ever wanting to narrow this down, there is a list of limiters on the left-hand side. Feel free to mess with those to alter it and get it the way you want. A great way to do that is to see what subjects these articles are labeled with. And when you click subject, you can click more options. And if you want to narrow it down to subjects that just include certain ideas, then you can check those and then scroll down and click apply. So that's another way to narrow your search. Anything you don't like, a change that it's made, feel free to just come up here and you can go under, let me move this screen over. You can come under this folder that's up here. When you click on it, click on recent searches and it will show you, in this case we've only done one, but if you've done multiple iterations of a search, it will list those here. If I had made changes to subject or anything else, it would label the next one. You can always go back by clicking on the set of results that is with the search line that worked for you. Now in the subject specific database with the terms that we gave it, there was 902 results. If I flip over to search everything, you'll see that there was 7,373 because we're searching across all of the databases. So not only is it cross-checking our search terms against business concepts, but it's also searching against psychology and it's searching against English and nursing and all of those other things. So if I scroll down through here, you can kind of get the idea. This is from the database Business Source Elite. So of course, a business database. This next one, independent review, subjects include social criticism, humanities. So this is probably a social science, a social work, sociology type database. This one is from OmniFile, which is a general database, etc. So you can see there's a lot of different ideas represented. And again, in these results, you're going to access these in the same way. You're going to click on the title. You're going to see a different layout, but you're going to be able to get similar information. So down through here, you've got that basic labeling information. On the right side is their tool that says Cite. So when I click it once, it pops it open, and all I have to do is scroll down, scroll through the list, find APA, and this is where you can copy and paste. And here's a prime example of, we put the last name in all caps, and that's not how you do that in APA. So again, it's in the right order, but it just needs to be fixed. Your PDF full text is over here on the left. I can click on that link, and it takes me right on into the PDF of this article, where I can use this tiny icon up here to save, or usually if I come down here, it usually pops up a box, although if there's been an update that's changed that, of course, that'll make a difference. But look for the little save icon that looks like an old school 3.5-inch floppy disk. And then you can choose to put it on your desktop or whatever makes sense for you. Print is also there as an option. And again, at any time, I'm going to click result list, and we're going to go back to that. At any time, if you want to narrow those down, feel free. On the left-hand side are those limiters we talked about, subject, publisher, etc. And if you want to get rid of those, it's just as simple as clicking an X over here. This box in EBSCO databases shows you what's already been selected, and you can get rid of a limiter by hitting the X next to it. So you can easily flip back and forth between what you had and what you want to fix and go back to. I can see that we are out of time. Do we have time for one more sample, Jeremy?
Yes.
Okay, so let's move on and take a look real quickly at the idea of critical thinking as creativity. And we're going to use those same concepts again of using quotation marks and using the asterisk. So what I did in my samples when I was testing it, going back to ABI Inform, the subject-specific database, I had critical thinking, and I had the word creative with a star, and I did CREATIV asterisk to capture creative, creativity, creating. That way we can capture all those at once without doing multiple individual searches. So when I switch this criteria around to that and rerun the search by clicking this search icon, this gave me 1,066 results. And in this business subject-specific database, we're getting things like developing critical thinking within a Master of Science and Leadership program, encouraging the development of critical thinking in the introductory accounting courses, using the problem approach, etc. Same thing if I pop over here to the search everything option and do the same. We're going to keep the critical thinking and change this to the creative with a star, again for the multiple endings. When I press enter, it will retain, if I scroll down here, you'll see that it retains those same limiters from before. And we get 9,381 results, again, getting multiple results. Finally, the last subject that we wanted to cover real quickly was the idea of solutions to turnover problems in organizations. And for instance, because we're talking about business organizations, this is especially important. If I want to hone in on business in the general database, you'll want to put the word business in here. So if I go to the subject database, I can do the word turnover. In fact, let me do this. Let's go back to the search screen so you can see where it starts fresh. So in this first box, if I type in turnover, and in that next box, if I type in organization, we've got full text peer-reviewed scholarly from 2010 to 2016, and I click search. It comes back with 12,505 results. Now, let's add in the word business and see what that does. And maybe I want to put it in quotes, maybe I don't. That's two different ways you can test it. If I rerun it with business organization, we go from 12,007, we come from the previous results to 11,878. So in this case, if we know the aspect of business, whether we're talking about management roles, whatever the case may be, we may want to stick those in there. But you can see things such as person, organization, fit, and turnover, intention, the mediating role of employee engagement. empirical study on the influence among corporate sponsorship, organizational commitment, organizational cohesiveness, and turnover intention. So you kind of get the idea. You can tinker with the words and with the search terms. You can use some of these tools like the quotation marks and the asterisks to get to the heart of what you want, and combine ideas more quickly. But certainly use that to your advantage. And I cannot stress to you enough that the library really does want to help you out. One of the things that we really enjoy doing is getting to talk with our students, find out what you guys are researching, and to actually, get in there with you and help dig through that. We find this stuff fascinating, believe it or not. I've learned a lot from my students just hearing what they're researching. So feel free to email us, to call us, go to the help tab on our homepage and use either the interlibrary loan link to request something we don't have, or the Ask a Librarian link to send us a question. It sends to the same place as this saulibrary@gmail.com address. Or if at any time you see the blue and white chat tab on the right side of the screen, that means one of the four of us is logged in and we're there to help live. But even if that doesn't appear, on almost every page past the home page is this gray and white box that says chat with a librarian, and that goes to a 24/7 feature that we do serve on. But it allows us to provide assistance to students beyond our normal hours by going into an agreement with other schools to help answer each other's questions. We give them FAQs to help answer SAU specific questions, but if at any time they can't answer your question, they will refer it back to us. So please do reach out and let us know if you've got anything you need some assistance with. Are there any questions? Go ahead, Jeremy, I'm sorry.
So how long should they research if they're having problems finding what they need before they call the library or email the library?
I would recommend that if you've been trying consistently for 15 minutes and you just find yourself consistently running into those walls, give us a call. We really don't want you to end up at the spot where you feel like you're ready to quit school. And the more frustrated you are, the harder it is to get to the heart of what you're after, and the harder it is to understand when somebody's trying to teach you a new concept. So reach out to us and let us know if you've got questions. So 15 minutes, super frustrated, give us a call. If you're just kind of messing around and you want to take more time to play with it and see if you can get results, that's okay. But just don't let it go on so long that you're just ready to throw the computer out the window. Are there any other questions right now?
Missy, James, Trisha, Brent, Mike, do you have any questions? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Wait a second. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Somebody else. Hello? Who is that? Trina, are you on your computer? Okay, so what can I do wrong? So wait, hold on a second. So it was frozen? Okay. Yeah, so what do I need to do? Hold on, I'll go wait. Hold on a second. Elizabeth, I have a technical issue.
Oh, okay. I have been recording this though, so they should have it if it froze on them.
Okay. So this is, oh. No, I'm going to hang up the phone. Okay. Can you, all right. Oh, you guys were frozen, totally frozen. How long have you been sitting there?
For quite a while, actually. Like 10 minutes.
When that happens, you need to hang up on your end so that I can call you back.
Okay.
Because if we're frozen on your end, you're still up, and it just rings busy on our end. On our end, it just completely drops the call.
Okay. That's okay.
I said you got to tell you to hang up, so just ignore it when you see it.
Okay.
Hang up now.
So what I did is I said you all looked really. You were all in, and then I started saying your names, asking you questions, and nobody was moving. And then the phone kept ringing, so I picked it up and hung it up a couple of times. Elizabeth, are you still there?
Yeah.
That was me trying to call you.
But then I looked on the screen, Trina, and you weren't moving, so I thought you couldn't be calling me. Okay. So wait, how do I don't know. Can you see my computer?
Yeah.
No.
Plug in.
Are you plugged in?
I am plugged in. Well, let me just.
Okay, on the remote, just hit the green button. There it goes.
There we go.
Okay. So, oh jeez. Okay. Well, okay, Elizabeth, I will backtrack for you and just but this is the question that I asked. I'm sorry. I was totally anyway. Okay, so my question for Elizabeth was how long should you search if you can't find what you're looking for before you call or email the library?
My advice is if you find yourself stuck, you've been searching diligently for 15 minutes and you're getting frustrated, just give us a call. We really do enjoy helping do this kind of stuff, and we want you to succeed and not feel like throwing the computer out of your window. So if you've been searching and you're just not coming up with anything, give us a call. If you want to work on it longer than that and you want to try other search terms, that's okay. Just call us before you get to the point of complete and utter frustration, because the frustration just puts you at a point where it's hard to learn anything anymore. And we want you to be able to follow along, with what we're showing you, because we want to be able to teach you how to work through the databases in your questions. So,
can you put your contact information back up, Elizabeth? Because I don't think everybody saw it.
Yeah, I think that was probably up while it was frozen. Let me go back. There we go.
I suggest that you put that in your course pack or on your computer, just because, on the inside flap or back flap, the phone number and email, just because it can, because you'll have it nearby when you're looking.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure too, Jeremy, that I send you the link to this recording. So if there's anything they missed and they want to go back and watch it again, they'll have access to that, as well as the students who weren't able to be with us this evening.
Okay, sounds good. Cool. Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate it. Have a good one, guys.